Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another Do As We Do live on Friday. I am Kimberly Scott, and this is my co host,
Jill Armijo. You don't have to be responsible for my last name.
I've got practice at it though. So even though I can't speak Spanish, I do enunciate well.
Oh, yeah. I bet you've been around it a lot, huh?
Yeah. So we are here today. We're excited to have our guest on sharing her caregiving story. She will join us here shortly. I just want to let people know that we are live on Facebook, the Do As We Do Facebook, on Jill's YouTube, and our Do As We Do YouTube, as well as Twitter. So wherever you're watching us from, please, if you have a question, you are in the same situation, leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. As well as if you this story resonates with you, please share it with someone that you know needs to hear it, because it's going to be interesting. Do As We Do, just really quick, everyone. Do As We Do is a nonprofit that first and foremost financially helps unpaid family caregivers, as well as educates and provides resources to those future caregivers. Because, like I always say, it's not about if you die, but it's about if you live, and having that conversation with your loved ones as to what your plans are, what you want, right? Very important. Correct, Jewel? Would you not agree?
Oh, my goodness. So important. You think you know, but you
Yep.
don't.
But you have no idea, especially after this story.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we're going to welcome another friend of mine and caregiver slash colleague, Deborah DeRouen. Hi, Deb.
Hi,
Hello.
Deb.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you.
Yes, thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Absolutely. Because I was definitely caught off guard by all of this.
Yes, you were.
And what's really crazy is that, like, we're really good friends and you have this nonprofit and I've been seeing you do this, but even seeing you do this, I was kind of like, I have some time before I need to worry about this stuff. And then like
Nope.
smacked in the face with it. So
Nope. So tell us your story. Tell us.
So it started back in November. My sister-in-law, who lives about 5 hours away from me, was ill and in her small town, and was having like an arm that was dead, and it wouldn't function anymore. But her local doctors were talking about amputation, and it was just it didn't. We wanted to get her to Houston to a really good hospital and figure this all out. So the day before Thanksgiving, I drove 5 hours, picked her up, drove 5 hours, brought her back. We went to the hospital, and unfortunately, that's where we found out she had an inoperable brain tumor called glioblastoma, which is extremely aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, she didn't make it home, and it was a 10-week experience from when I brought her here to the day that she passed away in my home on hospice. So it was a whirlwind and a crash course in caregiving in a situation like this.
So what did you do first? What was the first thing that you attacked?
The first thing, so my mother-in-law is really involved, and that's her daughter. So, thankfully, she had her hands already, wrapped around some of the financial aspect of things and bank account. Like there were some things that, we already had in motion, but just, I think determining that point of hospice was really, really hard. And just, I don't know, it's like you have a situation like that's very dire and it's terminal, but everyone's still holding out hope, and we're still calling MD Anderson, and we're looking to see if there's a study for this, or you're constantly looking for those last ditch efforts,
to
make your loved one better.
So your family was kind of in denial.
Yeah, I mean, there was that, because it was so unbelievable, and it happened so fast.
How old was she?
She was in her early 50s.
Okay.
Yep. So it really just came out of nowhere. So, dealing with the hospital, the doctors, the neurologists, like that whole process. Also, the challenge of going through all of that during the holiday season, being kind of put on the back burner and having conversations and results delayed because doctors and people are on their Christmas vacation. Meanwhile, you're sitting over here during your holiday season with a terminally ill loved one trying to figure out what to do next.
Yeah. So how was it that you ended up bringing your sister-in-law into your home?
So after the initial brain surgery where they went in and they biopsied, from there we went into an inpatient rehab program that is short term. So from there we found a home, like a home situation, caregiving home situation that I thought would be comfortable and homey, that was near us,
like a facility.
Yeah. And it was private care. Those are not cheap, like we knew we couldn't take her home yet. There were doctor's appointments and things to do here. So we found this place that we thought would work out great. None of these situations are ideal or comfortable or what you imagine them to be or what you expect the care to be. Probably normally isn't what you're going to get.
Yeah.
We had that situation worked out, and this is the part that like infuriates people and shocks people. But we had an evening where we decided to take her to the hospital to get a good checkup of things because we'd been delayed by doctors. Things were progressing, and it was just, I was like, let's just go to the ER. Let's just call and let's just go get everything checked out.
Because she was at her home 5 hours away, correct?
Well, no, she was here in her in-home facility
already. Okay.
And so we picked her up. We took her to the hospital. And then from there, they, of course, they deemed her, like, there's nothing that they could do for her in the ER, right? She's terminal, there's this brain tumor. Everything's as stable as it can be. So they discharge us in the middle of the night. And the ambulance takes us back over to the house where, we are keeping her, and it's locked up and no one is there.
Oh, at the facility, at the
house.
Private care. Oh, wow.
Because at the time she was the only patient there. So I think they assumed that they would keep her overnight, but they didn't. So I'm standing in a cul-de-sac with 2 ambulance men, an ambulance, and my sister-in-law in the back of the ambulance. And they're like, where do we take her?
Oh.
And that's when I was like, here's my house. Like, here's my address. Like, this is what we're doing. And that was the night where it was, my husband, my mother-in-law, we all decided, like, we're not going to be able to take her home. This is gonna be fast, and let's make her comfortable. Let's just figure out how we can rally and just make this as comfortable as we can for what we have left. So that's when we broke down our master bedroom, because that's our only bedroom downstairs. We made it basically a hospice suite with a hospital bed and a comfortable chair and a mattress for my mother-in-law. And my husband and I slept on the couch on the sectional. He was on one side, I'm on the other for the last few weeks. And, we just rallied and did the very best that we could until she was gone. So.
Wow.
So she had lived alone before.
Yes.
When she had these. And did you ever have any idea how long her symptoms had been?
No, not at all. Like, none of us knew how bad it had gotten, or and that's the guilty part that I think we all live with and we all feel, because we're like, man, if we knew more, we knew this or we knew that. But, she was also a person that went to the doctor a lot. So there was that in our mind too. Well, if she goes to the doctor all the time, like, if there's something this serious, surely they would catch it. But no, they didn't. So, you can't, there are those regrets and the what ifs. And I know you can't live in that because, we really just truly didn't know.
Yeah. People with brain tumors in the early stages and with dementia in the early stages seem okay.
Mm-hmm.
People will say, oh, they seem so normal. And to them, they're okay. Like
Yeah.
they don't realize something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure her house was a disaster when you went to get her. And that was because she didn't know something was wrong until her arm went numb.
Right. She didn't know. Like, I mean, it was very clear that you could tell that her brain had definitely started to function a lot differently from ours for a while in a way that we didn't understand or know that was happening.
Right.
Was she also kind of in denial? Would you say? Like, I mean, I know the brain that she doesn't know what's happening, but like,
she didn't know. So
when she was at the hospital, when you guys,
she didn't know. I mean, of course there was a lot of denial on her, but a lot of like, she was like, I'm gonna fight this, a lot of, which was hard because it was like when, we didn't want to like discount a miracle or whatever, but we also knew by what we researched and what we read, like we knew the gravity of the situation too. We knew that it was not going to be more than likely, it was, even if we'd gotten into a program or a study like a few weeks earlier, it would have extended a little bit, maybe, it's one of those, but it's, you can't live in the what ifs and the
guilt,
I mean, in the guilt.
There's no place for guilt right here, because even if it had been caught in the early stages, even if she had known something was wrong, and even if everybody raced over there and did everything they could, like you said, it might have given her a little more time, but probably not much. And I just hope that you guys can have peace with knowing that you did the best job you could when you knew there was a job to do. And you gave up your bed and your home, and you did everything you could to take care of her so that she could be comfortable and well cared for at the end. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yes. And you definitely took the bull by the horns, Deb. I remember, you going through that.
Hard. Like,
just figuring out, and every day was something different.
Mm-hmm.
What was the biggest aha moment, would you say, when you became that unpaid caregiver?
It really is like when you say get your crap together, like get it together, like get your shit together, like pardon my language, but I'm like, oh, you're my friend, you do this is what you do. And I still was in that mindset of like, I don't need to worry about that right now. Like I got a few years, because I need to worry about that for me. Mm-hmm. And I've got time, but we don't, and everything. And that's so interesting because she was so prepared. She didn't have children. So my kids were her kids. She loved our boys like they were her own. And so she had insurance policies and different things, but we had to like dig for that and find those things afterwards. There were things that she thought she had that she didn't have. There were things that had lapsed recently before her death that had known that was happening, or I do believe we even found something that lapsed while we were in the middle of like the whole hospital thing, So everyone needs to have that binder. It needs to all be in one place. Like it really does.
And everybody needs to know where the binder is.
Yeah. Tell somebody.
Yes. So, I mean, and she, this was so unexpected. And I mean, she was only in her early 50s. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how this was supposed to go down. So
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we commend you. And just like Brandon said, yes, huge sacrifice. And that's what your family members will do for you in that moment. Right. Mm-hmm. But putting in like the amount of stress,
it's very stressful. Yeah.
Talk about that. Like you juggling your daily life.
Oh yeah. Because, I have a full-time job. Now I work from home, but that doesn't mean that because I work from home, I can caregive all day, or, you know what I mean? So there, it was good. I could rush down. I could do, and be there. My mother-in-law was always here. But it's very stressful, it's very stressful for your family. Like, having that conversation with my sons to be like, hey, this is what's happening, and she's going to pass away here. And, just being very upfront and transparent. And do you want to talk about it? What does this look like for you? My oldest son's 22. He wanted to be here for, he had a close relationship with her because my kids are 8 years apart, so for him, even when she passed away, he wanted that time with her, where he held her, but then I have a 13-year-old who's more reserved, and, that it was harder for him, it was harder for him to see her decline. He didn't want to be in there, once she passed away. And he had that there were moments in the beginning when she got here that I knew that I needed to give him some purpose with her. I knew it was a little scary for him. So I would be like, why don't you make Pam a snack, and he made her like a treat, and she loved it. And he was really proud of that. So like, he had some moments, but then it got to the point to where, everything starts to change on her, when they start going through that process. And he got to where he was like, I don't want to go in there, Mom. And I just had to make sure that he knew that was okay. It is okay. You love her. You did your best. We're all doing this, and this is hard, and I'm not going to make him go, because it's traumatizing for me, for any adult in that situation. So yeah, it's just getting through it with the family, and, when it's happening in your home, under your roof, like it's a tough moment to get through. So,
yeah.
But there's the craziness that happens in the midst of it all. Like,
what was a memorable or funny moment that occurred
I believe
in those?
that I'm going to share this and once I say this story, it's in the universe, on the interwebs forever. Okay.
What's said on StreamYard stays on StreamYard.
Yeah, forever.
I hope so. But really and truly, she had half of her body that wasn't functioning anymore towards the end. And obviously she would get weaker and weaker. And when you're working with somebody in that situation, I think one of the final, like, letting people have their dignity to use the bathroom.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got to start that one over again. Okay. Sorry, Deb, we froze.
Well, when you're caring for someone, giving them their dignity as much as you can, to still do the things, and going to the bathroom by yourself into the bathroom is one of those things that you like. I can't imagine not being able to do that by myself.
Yeah.
So we had that moment in the downstairs half bath when I was really trying to like help her, and it was a day when her body it gave out. She went like, full like dead weight on me, and I had grabbed her and I was yelling for my husband, and guess who was the one that ended up peeing on the floor that day? Me, because guess who had the full bladder before I was carrying this human. And so it was just this chaotic, like embarrassing but funny moment, because my husband runs in and I'm like, help. And I'm holding a grown woman in my arms and I'm peeing on the floor. And he's like, is that you? And I'm like, yes, I can help it. Help.
It's a pee party.
And, it was chaos. And it was one of those moments where I like looked at her and I was like, look at me. Like, I'm the one that's peeing on the floor. Like, you don't need to be embarrassed here. Like, I got you, like,
it
here
happens.
you are. Like,
it happens to us all.
It's me. It's me, the one that's peeing on the floor today. And I'm the one, so it was just like chaos. You just have these crazy like moments where they're just wild and you can't believe it just happened, and you have these moments of humor where you laugh and you're like, this is what you do, this is family, and this is what you do with your family, and this is what you do as a human being. So
sure. That is something that you will forever remember, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's a special play. Even the situation, even though it's an embarrassing situation, if you will, it's still something that bonds you,
Mhm.
you know, to remembering your loved one and the sacrifices on top, you
Right.
know, with everything else that you guys did.
And with her being, my sister-in-law, I mean, she's been my sister-in-law for over 20 years. So, I mean, I was able to be that person to where I could be like, it's just me, I'm taking care of you. Or when things, it's hard to not be able to take care of yourself, get up and go to the bathroom, feed yourself, those things as the decline happens. And, I think having like a safe person, I mean, in that time is really important. So I was really glad that I was able to be there. And, like, what? It doesn't matter if you go to the bathroom all over yourself. It doesn't matter if you spill your food all over yourself. I'm here and I'm going to help clean you up. Like, we got this,
Mhm. Yeah.
because that dignity in the very end is like, I think one of the hardest things to maintain for them. You
Mhm.
just really want them to, because you're completely going backwards,
Yeah.
in life. And it's hard to lose those things, those faculties that you've had your entire life. So
Yeah. That's why it's so important to have these conversations. It's so important to, you know, plan, and I don't like to use the word plan because I don't want people thinking, oh God, but have a conversation. We talk about so many other things other than this. And it's not even about the death. It's about you not, as a human, not being able to care for yourself the last couple years of your life. And all of us, there's
it's
studies.
going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years. If you're physically healthy and you're a champ the whole entire time, until the end, at least 2 years, you're going to need somebody to help you do
Yeah.
these daily things. And if it's not a family member, then who is it going to be? Right.
Yeah.
Or where do you want to be?
You need to look into that, because I don't think people understand really how just brutal, I'm just going to say it, like, that experience is getting proper care, proper caregivers, facilities that take care of your loved one properly and clean them properly. Like, there's so much that every day you're on guard. Like, every day I would go to the rehab and I'd be like, okay, like, is everything good here? Do I need to go yell at a nurse? Do I need to go report something? Like,
And we need to really be thinking about these things for ourselves, like you're saying, because all the facilities are short-staffed now. Not just because of COVID. I've been a physical therapist for many years, and it's the staffing has been going downhill for years. And the people that work there, most of them are loving, amazing, hardworking,
Underpaid,
fabulous people. So we can't blame them, but
it's hard. It's
loved
hard.
ones cannot get the care, and that's going to be us too. And so we need to have that in mind when we create our plan, or include our kids in our conversation and say, you know what, this is what I want. Maybe you really don't want to live with your child ever. You just don't want them to have to experience that. That's how my dad is. Like, he is like, I'm never going to go live with one of my kids. I just don't want them to have to do that. And so he has a plan. It doesn't matter how bad the nursing home is. That's where he wants to go. So if that's his wish,
that's his wish.
We probably won't mind, but that's his wish. I don't know what we'll do, but anyways,
at least the conversation has been had.
Yeah.
Deb, what about you and your kids? Like, what did your oldest, because he is,
Well, I mean, it's like my husband and I mean, we're compiling the things, and, we need to get our like, we have a list of things that we are very aware of that we are working on to take care of, because, I mean, I don't want my kids to make those final decisions, because they're gut wrenching, they're hard, and you second guess, did I do the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Like, is this what they would want? Is this what I would want? Maybe it's what I would want, but maybe it's not what they want. Like, it's a lot. It's emotionally a lot.
Traumatizing.
Very traumatizing. And, like with you, Kimberly, like, and you've got your mom, you could have your mom for still many years, possibly. Whereas, with my sister-in-law, like, I still to this day sit back and I'm like, I can't believe that happened. It was 10 weeks.
Yeah.
To the day that I picked her up and we lost her. It was just, going through that process in like this amount of time as opposed to
Mhm.
this amount of time.
Mhm.
And I, to this day, still sit back and I can't believe it. Like I'm just like, wow, like that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And
Because you don't, and that's where I keep telling people, it's like, why wait? Because it could happen tomorrow. You could have a car accident and live. You could have a stroke and live. You could, they could find a brain tumor, right? And you're going to have another couple, and by then your cognitive abilities are really declined, right?
right.
So why not at least have that conversation high level, right? Just and make sure all your stuff is in order, and jot it all down and have it somewhere where and tell somebody where to go get it, right? Like powers of attorney. Luckily, you said that your sister-in-law had already given the powers of attorney to your mother-in-law, correct?
Yep. We had, all of that had, we had all of that taken care of and signed, and
It's still like you're just figuring out especially when someone is in that they're not completely there, if you
Right.
will, right? And they feel like they're going to get through this, and they're like, you were saying that at some point you had to take away your sister-in-law's cell phone, right?
Yeah. I mean, as she declined, obviously we've got a brain tumor that's growing extremely fast, and decision making starts to decline, and shopping, she always loved to shop. She was always buying things. So she's got her phone, she's in the rehab facility, you've got all this stuff happening, and then the ordering, she's gonna, so you have to start paying attention to those things, and the conversations like, do we take the phone, like what do we, because we don't want her selling the house or purchasing that family vacation that she was talking about purchasing, like Fiji or something, why? And it was just, trying to protect her.
Yeah.
You're trying to protect them, but still you don't want to take away you feel like it's a terrible feeling when you feel like you're taking away someone's rights.
Yeah.
But
because you want them, like
you want to keep it safe. You want to make sure the right decisions are being made. So it's this weird, like you hover a lot on this adult person because you're just trying to make sure that they're okay and that they're not doing anything that we can't undo.
Yeah. For sure. It's an everyday, especially when they're so independent, like, and they're not used to having, for my mom, when she didn't want to give up driving, right? Like, I took a lot of dings on that car until like one day when she instead of taking a right to go see, her boyfriend, she took a left and when it was going into Mexico, right? Like, because El Paso, it's that easy to get into Mexico, right? Like that was the day we just called it. Like I just can't.
We can't have you going. We can't have you driving into Mexico, Mom. No, on the fly. Like we don't do that.
No. So it's gut wrenching. It's hard, and not overpowering them, but at the same time and you can't really reason, right, Jill? Right. Like somebody with a cognitive, it's reasoning is.
No, you get to that point. I mean, you can't reason. I mean.
They can't reason.
They can't. Yeah. And it just causes fights that you just don't, it's just not worth if we would all just have a conversation in advance, because it's not worth having that, like that argument, that fight, that ill will, whatever it will cause, because it will cause those things, right?
The emotions are there.
And having the conversations and all the things in order in advance gives the caregiver so much peace of mind when their loved one can't even abide by them. Like their caregiver's like, no, I didn't ever say that, or whatever. That you're complying with their intact desires instead of having to deal with the new person that doesn't even know what their needs are or how to address them. And then you don't have to have the arguments. You don't have to feel manipulated. You don't have to feel like they're in denial or they're trying to control or they're trying to, do all the things. You can just say, well, this is Mom and I'm just going to love her as she is, but I'm going to do what she wanted me to do.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to have the guilt and stuff.
Right. That's
Yeah.
absolutely true. Mm-hmm.
So have you already talked to your oldest son, because since he's 21, about like if this were just to happen tomorrow, what, on a high level, like what
On a high level, like for, my husband, I mean, we're together. So like, we know, based on if it were both of us, honestly, I haven't had that conversation.
Yeah.
God forbid something happened to us both at the same time. But my husband and I have had many conversations.
Good. That's
to
a start.
What that would look like. Yeah. And what we want and what
Mhm.
we want each like to do for each other. Like, what are the boundaries? We've had that conversation
Good for you.
several times. Yeah.
Because like, I can't even imagine having to, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people. Jill has this experience of caring for her husband. But that is a super labor of love that sometimes just, it wears on. It's heartbreaking already for your spouse, or the person that you've been with, for married to for however many years. And then now you have to watch them decline, right? Like it's something that is, I know how it feels with, me being a daughter, taking care of my mother.
Right.
I can't even fathom, a spouse, right? So good for you for having those conversations with Paul, because it's super important.
We've had the conversation with my mother-in-law too, going through all of this, and her burying her mother 6 months later, burying her daughter. And
wow.
I'm like, what, like we want to be very clear on what you want, and we'll make it happen. Like, you tell us what you want, and we'll make it happen.
For
so
sure.
It's the hard. It's just hard. It's hard. And I don't want to leave my kids in a situation where it's like they constantly wonder if they made the right decision,
Yeah. And you don't want to put them through the paralyzing decisions that come with family caregiving.
And I don't want them digging for everything after I'm gone too.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be hard enough for them when they're, when you're failing or after you've passed away. They're going to have so much else to deal with. That's the last thing you want them to have to worry about is paperwork.
Where are the documents? Where's this? Where's that?
100%. And it's something that I feel like the X generation, I do feel it's a generational, like I saw my mom and dad both take care separately of their own parents, right? So it was just something natural, right? But it shouldn't be that. It should be a conversation about what you want, because it is so, I mean, I saw how it divided my dad's family, right? Because it was put onto my dad and my aunt, because they were the two that had grown children left. My dad was retired. But it definitely put a divide within that side of the family. And it's sad. It's sad and that's because there's no conversation, right? Like you don't, I don't wish that upon anyone. And the fact that I don't have any kids, I'm going to rely on my niece and my nephews, but they're going to know everything's going to be in order for them, so that they don't have to make, a gut-wrenching decision. They just know exactly what I want. And I encourage everybody to do that, right? Jill, you've already done have you had the conversations with your kids?
Yeah, we've had some conversations, and we actually need to have more. That our situation changes, and so every couple of years we really have to ask some more questions. And our kids are going through their developmental, just like Deb's kids. They're growing up, they're going to live in different places, they're going to get married, they're going to have jobs, they're going to have things that are going to influence what we can expect from each other when those things happen.
Good point.
So I have a son who would be very capable of helping us, but he's in the military and he's in special forces. And so he can't be responsible for taking care of us, and because he's going to be called to go do other things.
Yeah. And no, I don't feel any parent wants their child to stop their entire life.
No. We don't want their family to have to suffer. And at the same time, it's good for families to give and love and serve. We don't want to take away valuable experiences from them. And it is a blessing to take care of a parent or a grandparent. My family's benefited so much from taking care of my grandparents. And I am really glad to help my mom take care of my dad. So it's not that we want, everything to be perfect or anything for our kids, but it is important that we take some things into consideration and care about, the situation they'll have with their spouse and their children. And
right.
Yeah.
I mean, we never thought. I mean, my sister-in-law lived 5 hours away. Like, I never thought that I would bring her here and then that would be it. Like, I fully expected to take her back home.
To her home, not to your home.
Her home.
Yeah.
And, and it was one of those things where it was like, where do you want, you want to that family member, you want to let them pass away in their home. There was that whole conversation of like, can we get her home so that we can have her in her, but then it just wasn't even feasible because everything happened so fast. So it was like,
you just
what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And being in a rural area, that's hard to find in-home somebody
healthcare,
all the time.
Obviously, healthcare was an issue there because they were wanting to amputate her arm when she had a brain tumor. So
wow.
We
that's a whole other conversation.
That's an entire new podcast live and specialties of
yeah. Wow. Well, you made a huge sacrifice, you and Paul and your kids. You're definitely, that's amazing humans. And, I was happy when you shared your story with me, and I'm even happier that you're willing to go live and share your story with others, because they need to hear how it can just happen in a heartbeat, and you just don't ever know. So why not just have that conversation in advance? Right. So whoever is the person, the most, whoever's going to take that bull by the horn, I don't want to say that it's the most responsible, because, I'm not always the most responsible, but I was the one who took the bull by the horn. You did that, right? Jill, you did that. When you're guessing at things, it makes it so much harder.
And I just want to say, Deb, that I'm so impressed that through your whole narrative, you never used words like, well, I had to, or I was forced to, or I was, you stood there on the street with those two paramedics and you made a decision, and you accepted the responsibility, but you didn't victimize yourself. You didn't feel like you were powerless. You could have said, I don't know what you guys want to do with her. You could have said, my family isn't in a position
back to the ER. Like,
yeah, my family can't do this. We don't have, a bedroom downstairs, and, we're not going to give up our master. You totally allowed these changes to take place in your life without becoming, like I said, a victim. And I just think that's amazing.
Commend, yes, for sure.
Look at myself as anything other than just, this is, I don't know, this is what you do. We were faced with it.
Yeah.
And you could have chosen not to, but you chose to because of who you are.
Yes, exactly. Because of who you are. And so folks out there that are watching, you might not have the same blessings with the people in your life. So have a conversation, and on top of, don't put your family members through that, right? Like, just come on, folks.
Pull it, like, wrangle it all together, because it is really hard.
For sure. 100%.
It was the hardest thing that I've ever done. That was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. So
harder than having 2 children?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Way harder.
It was way harder. I mean, I remember calling my husband in the middle of the night. I'm like, okay, here's what happened, and I need you to clear out the living room because we're showing up in the middle of the night. And there we are in my living room with 2 paramedics trying to, initially we'd put her on the couch because we hadn't broken down the bed and moved the hospital bed in yet. So it was just
a lot.
It was a lot. It was all of these things that you just didn't expect to be happening in your life, and they just unfolded and happened so fast.
Yeah. For sure. 100%. Well, we appreciate you so much, Deb, for sharing your story, for being that amazing caregiver that you are. And it definitely is a blessing a blessing in disguise.
You guys are doing an awesome thing by putting this out here, being consistent and sharing this. No one's talking about this. I never hear anyone else talking about this, and it's really important. So thank you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We did run a little bit over again. Jill, do you have any parting words?
Well, I think we ran over because I had enough words, so I'm good. Thank you. Thanks, Kimberly, for all you do. You're fabulous.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you all next Friday. Remember, it's not about if you die, but it's about if you live. So what is your plan? Tell someone. Thank y'all. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.
Bye.